Hello. And it's time for The Condescending Evangelist, episode 7. I think that's right. Well, I'll put here that it's no dummy, it's episode whatever. If that doesn't turn out to be the case. I think it's episode 7. At some point I'm going to get that wrong. I don't think it's this week, but let me tell you something. This was a week, and I'll go over some of what happened this week in the current events portion of this video. It's not going to just be one thing. We'll talk about several things, including something that happened today. It was like, whoa. But I want to reflect back in the testimony portion about some of what I was going through in my college years. And, that probably contributed to some harder times later on because I was in a state of, I don't want to say confusion, but the problem with what happened with the band 42 Faces was there was no real direction, I think, until we got to a certain point, and then that was we finally. I felt like, I think we all felt like we finally got to a place where, okay, now we're ready to move forward on whatever. But I think the problem was, when I look back on even at that point, was God at the focal point? I think that's maybe why my brother left. See, we've never had a conversation about this all the years. I don't know why. It's why I talk about it, because every time I try talking to him about stuff, he gets mad for whatever reason. It's like he wants to blame me for well, did I even ask you? I mean, you just felt like you could join the band, but did I ever? I don't even remember that. The point is, I was going through my own inner turmoil about stuff. In part because, well, I was in another band too, that was actually had aspirations, we'll say. That band, Lunge, we recorded a demo, and with Richie from Seventh Heaven. He was we recorded a demo with him in his basement, and I thought it sounded pretty good. And our drummer thought it was good enough to send it to record labels. He sent it to big. See, he's got an ear for music better than me, probably. If he thought it was good enough to send it to like A&M Records and Epic Records and whatever other labels, Warner Brothers, I mean, maybe he was a little delusional doing that, but at the same time, he was a pretty doggone good drummer, and every guy in the band was pretty good. Everyone contributed something, and I thought that band had what it took, in all honesty, if you want to know the truth, to get to do something. But the problem was, I was dealing with my own personal. I was like, I want to do music for God. I don't want to do music for myself. And so I wanted to do. So I started. That's why I went to another guy. I talked to another guy. Who was he also played bass. See, if I wish I was better at guitar. If I could do things differently, I would let him play bass. I play guitar and sing. And we'd find another guitar player that was the issue. With like the straight up band, we couldn't find a guitar player. A real guitar player. If we could find a real guitar player, and so I think that's what kind of inspired me maybe to like start a band with because I was like, I wasn't too into what was going on with the straight up band from a musical standpoint. From a spiritual standpoint, maybe it was better than what Lunge was doing, but even there, I was like, this is kind of flaky, I thought. Okay, now with Lunge, musically, it was everything given all circumstances, it's everything you can ask for. Style wise with the band, we got along pretty well. But the problem was, of course, I was in school. My parents were really on me to go to school, and I had money for school too. Hindsight's 2020. Let me tell you something. If I could do things differently, I would have preferred, just this is just me speaking, I would have preferred to not go to school, take the money and use that to go on the road with Lunge. Honestly, when I think back, because that band had more potential. 42 Faces, there was just too much disunity. There was no musical unity. There's no, like, I didn't get along with really anybody on a musical level when I really think back. At least like with Lunge, Tim and I, the drummer, we got along on a lot of stuff, a lot of music, different styles, metal, progressive rock, alternative, and the others were also into more alternative in classic rock. Though Beatles was like, it was funny when John joined the band, because all of a sudden the Beatles, he was really into the Beatles. I'm like, oh, this is interesting, because Lunch, they were really into the Beatles. I really didn't get into the Beatles until after John. I was like, I gotta listen to the Beatles now, because it's like, what's with it was like this resurgence of the Beatles. I mean, I was more into Rush. Rush was a band that was still going at the time. And of course, it was in the late 90s, interestingly enough, 97, I think, is when Neil Peart had his tragedy with his daughter and his wife. It happened like the time span we were on the road. It's kind of crazy when I think about it, but it was like 97, 98. That's the time span Neil Peart's dealing with his trauma. And I read his book, Ghostwriter, and he talked about a group, an evangelical group, too, that he encountered, which kind of got me thinking. Wouldn't have been one of the captive free groups. I don't know. He never said which group he encountered. I think it was somewhere in California. This was in the 90s. Like, it wasn't us, was it? Because I don't remember. I think I would have remembered that. But it was like, it was the evangelical group in the book. In his book, Ghostwriter, he talks about it. Kind of makes me wonder, because then, if you listen to later albums, like, for example, Snakes and Arrows, that deals with spiritual matters, and then even Clockwork Angels too. So, it's one of those things I wonder about with regards to Neil Peart and all the guys, really, the whole band there. What was really going on with all of them? I know Geddy Lee identifies as a Jewish atheist, which is kind of funny to me when I think about it. But the point I'm trying to make is college. I'm going to talk about something in particular. Um, you know, like I said, if I could do things differently, I would rather not gone to school. Focus more on music. But, the problem was, I think my frame of mind with regards to lunch wasn't right. I was thinking, well, if we can't make it big, we're not going to make it at all. I really didn't have that motivation to make it that big in music the way the others did. But I was there. I wouldn't have turned it down. It's just that wasn't where my energy, my drive was, as far as what I wanted to do with music. What I really wanted to do with music was what 42 Faces, sort of. Not exactly, though. 42 Faces was not my brainchild. I started the band, but it wasn't my brainchild. It turned into something else because my brother, I think, got involved. See, myself, the guitar player, and Brian, the drummer, we kind of shared similar musical interests when it came to like heavy metal. We all liked heavy metal, and that was my vision. I wanted to be kind of more of a edgy, maybe on the edgier side of alternative rock, kind of a progressive alternative metal. I was trying to think of with a little bit of a classic rock feel to it. I was kind of thinking like Boston meets Boston and Journey meets Dream Theater. Kind of is what I was kind of thinking. To some degree, a little bit of Pantera, Boston, Journey, Dream Theater, Pantera. Is kind of what I was thinking. That's what I was kind of thinking, with like a King's X vibe to it too, because it was like three of us. We were Rush and King's X vibe a little bit. That's kind of what I was thinking. But see, and if we were gonna make it in the Christian world, Tooth and Nail Records. I wasn't thinking like Intense Records, really, because those are the bands I was into in junior high and high school. But like once I got into college, I started listening to some more like MXPX and POD. I was actually a little bit into Skillet. Also, who else was I listening to? Band that our Luster ended up doing like a showcase type of thing for at the Eagles Club in Milwaukee. And what's that band called? Switchfoot. I was kind of into them too. That was kind of the style I was thinking more. Audio Adrenaline to some extent. And the funny thing is, thinking about that, later on, after Ben and Brian and my brother are gone and it's only John and me, all of a sudden we're asked to play this festival where management groups from Nashville were interested in us. I'm like, really? I was like, what? In my mind, that's what I'm thinking. Like, because after what happened at Life Fest, I was like, and see, Glenn Kaiser. I still point to Glenn Kaiser. He was very instrumental as far as like, well, it was like the first live show I saw. Rez headlined. This is back in April of '89. I think it was April of '89. That would have been 36 years ago. I was in junior high. I was in 7th grade, I think, and there was two other guys. And see, I was just starting to listen. I wasn't really. I was much more into sports than in junior high. I really, when I was 13, I was like, but then I saw the first band that I saw live play, Sacred Warrior. I was like, I was kind of stunned. This is when I'm 13. I was like, wow, I didn't think a Christian band could do this. I didn't think Christians could play this kind of music. That's why I was a little stunned by it. Because the way my mom raised me, I mean, she was like, anything that's like that is of the devil. That's the way my mom was. And so I started listening to them, and I listened to then Striper, and I listened to Rez, Whiteheart, Petra. I was like, well, there's a whole world here that I had no idea about. As far as like Christian rock, I'm like, bro. I don't know. And then I saw Sacred Warrior again when I was 14. I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And see, there was a guy there that I got in a fight with. Everyone's telling me, kick him in the balls. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to punch him in the stomach. And he grabs my throat. Nearly kills me. And so, he gave his life to the Lord, and I accepted the Lord the same night. Okay, this is, I think, January in 1990. I want to say, yeah, I think it was, I just turned 14. I was in 8th grade, and I decided to like acknowledge that I needed a savior because I knew I was a sinner. I understood what it meant to be a sinner at that point. And I knew that only the blood of Jesus could save me. And the fact that Jesus rose from the dead to be the mark of real faith. That's what it is. When you think about Romans 10, the word of faith, that's really what it's about. The resurrection. And without that, what does Paul say? Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Well, that was short-lived. I mean, I was still a believer. But see, the beginning of my downfall may have occurred with what happened with him. Because we were kind of zealous a little bit in 8th grade and early high school, well, like for like 6 months maybe. We were a little bit zealous, but then he started going back to the way of the world in high school. And that's when I may have started my downslide, in all honesty. There was something that occurred, probably. I don't know what happened first, but it's not that I'm still a believer, but it's like, it didn't, how do I explain it? I had to rely on my own understanding, which is not where you want to be. We're taught not to do that, and that's what I started doing, though. I think at that point, instead of like maybe challenging him, because maybe God was telling me to challenge him, and I don't think I was being obedient in that sin. It was difficult for me to like understand something. Other things occurred that caused me to like. I never have renounced my faith, but I've done a lot of things where I'm like, definitely not utilizing proper faith in God. I think I was being more following my own head, what's up here, instead of following what's in here, but instead of not recognizing who's living in here, a lot of people are turned off by Christians, I think, because of things they say, and then they see how they act, and it's like, well, we're human beings, something that people who are not believers need to understand. We're not perfect. And so a lot of people say, see, there's no way there can be a God. Look how he does. Look how he treats people. I'm just doing something right here real quick here. Let's see if that makes a difference. My whole thing is, when I talk about 42 phases and I talk about certain circumstances, it's because I do think that we are in a spiritual battle. And I don't really understand the what's occurred until after. I don't really understand like the results of that. And the results are still ongoing. But what I try to do is, I've had conversations with people, and they just I just know that they don't know what I'm talking about. It's just one of those things, it's like, okay, we're definitely on a different level here. I don't understand it, and I'm not putting them down. It's just, for some reason, the Holy Spirit is either I have something I'm off the beaten path and I don't realize it, or B, the Holy Spirit is giving me insight and they're not giving it to you for whatever reason. That's how I operate. I don't know how else to consider it, because, well, like I said, I started 42 Faces with a mindset that ministry, evangelism, and it turned into something else because one of the guys wanted to be famous. And like I said, he even would say, like, he viewed himself as like Paul McCartney, even though, like, at the time, I think he was more acting like John Lennon, which is why I think there's something not 100% right up here. I can't do anything about that. People know. I mean, look, friends of mine would call me Getty because I was a Rush fan, But it's like, I knew I was never at that level. This guy, I think, thought he was at that level. That's how delusional he was. And that was a problem, not just for... It's like he didn't get it. And I try to explain this to him. And then he's talking to me about this other guy who's like... I'm like... I try to explain, like, Jeremy, he was... There was something else going on with Jeremy. that I don't think when we were having a conversation, I couldn't break through. It's like, and then there was a conversation that was had at his house, and something, he and his wife were going back and forth on something, and it's like, and then I look at his wife, and his wife is looking at me like, and I'm like, yeah, I know. That's the issue. And so, it's like, all you can do is pray for people at the end of the day. That at some point the light bulb goes on in their head. That's all you can do at that point. But see, the thing that still gets me to this day is my brother couldn't figure this out. I thought my brother was like way ahead of me, way, as far as like understanding, discernment, all that. No. My brother didn't have the gift of discernment. I think that's why what happened. When I think about it, and you see, God will give you confirmation on certain things. And I'm going to share something in a little bit that's like, I see it loud and clear. No one else may see it. It's like, oh, wow. And I'll give a clue and see if anybody figures this out. That's all I'm going to do is give breadcrumbs here, because it's like, I'm not saying I'm the infamous insider. Because if time travel is true, but what I'm saying is, yeah, there's something that's coming up that's like on the nose. It's right on the nose. That's like, there's no way that's a coincidence. And it's not something that necessarily is of God, but God is showing it to me. He would be aware of it. See, this is what you understand. The devil, he does things to distract. But then God will point it out. He will show someone who's a watchman. I am a watchman, I think. He'll show it, and then he'll be like, now this is what you need to do about it. Now, I haven't, I don't know fully what it means, but it means something is happening on next Wednesday. Something is going to happen. I've already seen something happen. Already, there's like, there's too much going on. I mean, got the Ark of the Covenant discussion. I'll talk about that too. That is not the real Ark of the Covenant. Okay? I'm going to explain why. Those of you who have looked at the documents, you should know, if you know the scriptures, that ain't the real Ark of the Covenant. That's the CIA supposedly found through remote viewing. Yeah. No. But just to continue on with my testimony portion, I'm talking about the band. Why? Well, it's because it's ultimately the timeline of it, the timeline of events. Okay, I'm going to talk about two individuals in the current events. One that's in the news this week. But see, the one that's in the news, he was a player at NIU, a running back, when my brother was in the marching band. He was a student. I was in high school at the time. But I remember seeing him at least, I think, in a couple of games. I was at a couple of games when I was in high school with my parents. Well, my brother was in the marching band, so went to at least one or two games every year, I think. And I also remember um, was it Stacy Robinson? I might have been at the game. NIU destroyed Fresno State, 73-18. That would have been when I was. Yeah, my brother would have been a freshman. It was 1990, fall of 1990. I was a freshman in high school, and I can't remember if I was at that game or not. Might have been there. Stacy Robinson was the quarterback. I mean, I just the Packheads, the way they talk about things is just funny to me because it's like they think they're so far above, you know, the new Mountain West, and it's like, man, I think you're causing an awakening. UTEP, Wyoming, they're no slouch. Air Force, UNLV, San Jose State, they got a pretty good coach. Nevada, they're not bad. Hawaii, they're building a new stadium. So it's like everybody's like down on Hawaii. It's like it's like they're building a new stadium. They're going to be pretty good, I think. Better than people realize. And so talking about just the timeline, because like it was 1993 when I was in Lunge, when Lunge formed. That's the same year Smashing Pumpkins, by the way, hit it big. And of course, James Eha went to my high school. He was in that band. He lived across the street from friends of mine. He lived next door to my sixth grade gym teacher and my freshman year gym teacher. And my sixth grade gym teacher got in some trouble. And it kind of made me wonder because he, like James Eha, lived next door to him. There's other stuff I could say. Nothing happens by accident, I'm telling you, nothing happens by accident. Also deals with like what was in the news regarding the pyramids, what's been discovered under the pyramids. People need to analyze my where I went to school. I mean, I'm telling you, I was talking about the gargoyles earlier this week, and then this happens. I mean, I'll get into that. It deals with also the news regarding LaShawn Johnson. But what's the main point am I trying to drive at with regards to the band? Well, like I said, one of the guys really wanted to be famous. I mean, he would not hold back. It was my brother. I'm like, he's the one that gets me. Look, if he doesn't understand by now, it's like, I don't know what to do. In the song, what good does it do to gain the world but lose your soul? I'm like, do you not understand this? How do you not understand this by now? I tried explaining this to him. It's like it's like he's like not letting me express my thoughts here. He can say whatever. He can BS. His wife can BS. It's okay. But if I say something, I'm like, that doesn't work this way. It doesn't work that way. And we lived basically two doors down from that place right there. You know, I'm like, one of the drummer. Okay, I'll go back. I'll talk to. I don't want to like talk about what he said, but it may pertain to that a little bit. I think it does. Actually, um, I like I said, I talked about in the song "Condescending Evangelist." I talked about something. Okay, now like I said, the drummer when he here's the thing. When he said what he said, it should have been a moment of liberation for everyone. But you know what I think it turned into? You know what I really think it turned into? A moment of, well, I don't have that problem. What's the opposite of humiliation? Humility. What's the opposite of it? It's pride. You know what pride is? Believing you're above it all. That's what pride really is. I'm not here to say I'm above anybody. But I knew I couldn't say anything at that point. And so it's like, this is the issue. If you're not asked to be somewhere, see, I was asked, my brother asked me to play bass. He asked me to play. So did he think he could just join just because he asked me to join? Like I said, pride is when you think you're above. That's what pride is. That's what Lucifer thought he was above the Most High. I'm not calling myself the Most High. I never thought I was the Most High. But you know, if you think you're above someone, you're full of pride. That's what it is. When you steal someone's life, in essence, that's kind of what happened. I kind of think that's what happened. Because you think you're entitled. I think that might be what happened. And if you have a mother, it's like, think about what's going on with Rebecca and Isaac and Jacob and Esau. I think our mother may have taken that role. That's what I think. Until it can be shown otherwise. But then, you know, if you marry someone that's Jezebel, like Jezebel, look, I can't talk to this person anymore. Because this person doesn't even stop to think. Okay, that's the issue. I'm not like that. I'm just not like that. I don't get people who just feel like they could just, boom. That's why my brother is with me. I'm like, do you ever think about what you're saying? I'm not cursing him. I'm being, this is what's happened. It's like, God, I like the band, why am I in the band? I'm like, what are you saying? Because it made no sense. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. And so years later, I decided to say something. And instead of like, pondering what I'm saying, it was like immediate. Why'd you tell me? What do you just wait for me to say something so you can say that? And then I tell my mom about it. Now, Scott, as your mother, yeah, you're not very good at that. Let me just say it like it is. You were never very good at that. Maybe that's why I hold things in. That's why I use this channel to say things. I'm not saying it to hurt people. This is about the truth at the end of the day. I'm not saying it to hurt anybody. It's so we don't talk. The reason we don't talk is because people say stupid things years earlier. I don't know what to do with it. And then it's still up here. I say something and then blah. I'm like, that's not rational. Don't you see? There's a big segment of the church that's gone completely irrational. God is not that way. God has to deal with the children of Israel, who's very irrational when you look at it. And the church can be that way too. And that's why God's the way he is throughout Scripture. To the point of now we have our government. Now I'm going to segue. This is the time to segue. We have our government doing experiments on remote viewing. And so in 1988, December 5th, oh gee, they apparently via remote viewing find the Ark of the Covenant. Except I'll explain later that it wasn't, because I want to get into something else. Okay. There was news earlier this week about a football coach got in all kinds of trouble with a data breach, a massive data breach, where he got into people's personal data. I think it was like 150,000 students. Now this is the news. This is what he's been, I think he's been arraigned. He's pleaded not guilty. His name's Matt Weiss. I looked into him. And guess what I found? He was an assistant coach with the Baltimore Ravens up until, well, through the year 2020. He then was the coach at University of Michigan. This happened apparently while he was at the University of Michigan. Now, the report I heard is that it goes back to 2015, except he wasn't with University of Michigan until 20. He didn't start coaching until 2021. He was the assistant coach with Baltimore from 2015 to 2020. And he became the running backs coach. He actually had he was different position coaches. He had several different positions as a coach. But he became the running backs coach. He was a punter. I think at Princeton. I forget where he was. He was a punter. I think in the Ivy League somewhere. And then he became a coach. And then he was an assistant coach at Baltimore for several years. And in 2018, he became the running backs coach for Baltimore. That's the same year Thomas Hammock became the NIU head coach, where from 2014 to 2018, Thomas Hammock was the running backs coach. So all of a sudden, this individual gets in the news. I find out about it March 25th. I think it was in the news first March 20th. But then, and it's like Thomas Hammock is like, he replaced Thomas Hammock. It's like, oh, that's a big deal there. I found it funny. I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. Well, guess what happens? On the same day I find out this information, or the day after, LaShawn Johnson. LaShawn Johnson is in the news. TMZ. He was arrested for running a dog fighting ring. Basically, he's trafficking. He had 2 kennels where he's trafficking pit bulls. 190 pit bulls were discovered, or rescued, if you will. I'm like, but see, he got in trouble with the law like 20 years earlier. I see Mike Vick, of course, has been in the news. So I'm like, there's something not right about this. I'm having a hard time believing this. Well, we'll see what happens. His court date, I think, is in April. I'm suspicious about this because, like I said, if he has already gotten in trouble, and then Mike Vick, I'm like, why has he become a coach? You know, Mike Vick's in the news about being a coach. Right? It's like, hey, Thomas, someone call LaShawn. You know, see if he wants to be a coach. What's he doing? You know? Wouldn't that have been a better idea than doing a dog fighting after you got in trouble, after the Mike Vick information? It's really sad that people can't figure that out. You know, it's like, I've done some stupid things in my life. I'm no perfect person, but that's why I've decided, you know, I could drive special needs kids, you know, for a living. I can make YouTube videos. You know, this week's been kind of rough for me with my car. You know, it's like, okay, I can't do DoorDash as much as I want. That's all I know. That's what I'm learning. I'm going to have to figure out. Subscribe to my channel. I might have to make this a moneymaker. Subscribe to me on Rumble. I might, you know, I'm just saying, I might need to turn my social media enterprise into a moneymaker. Because, you know, not just to make money, just, you know, because to pay the bills. But it's not about paying the bills. ultimately. I'm not too concerned, but it's like, we'll see if April 2nd is actually Liberation Day. There's something about it that's like, wow. I'll give a clue. I'll share. I'll wait till a little later to share what that is. But I also want to talk about someone else. Sam Hurd. He's another one. Now he's playing for the Bears. His deal follows an interesting timeline, I have to say. Because I think it was 2011. He was signed with the Bears. And that's when he got into trouble. And see, it's 2011 is when I started working with Takeout Taxi. And it's like, oh man, that's kind of interesting how that all... Because he gets busted at a restaurant. I think in Rosemont, I want to say. Was it Rosemont or it was Des Plaines? I don't know. Somewhere near O'Hare. Like, I don't think it was the one in Northbrook. Because that's further north. I think it was one near it was a Morton's Steakhouse. And it's like, man, I started doing food delivery in 2011. And he gets busted. He's playing with the Cowboys. And see, he started, I think, in 2006. So he would have been with the Cowboys in 2008 when the NIU shooting happened. So he met his wife at NIU. And it's sad. But it's like, it's not too surprising because then this happens. Okay? Consider like all that's happened in the news. And then this happens. The Home Student Center was struck by lightning with a passing thunderstorm around 3:30 a.m. There was also some hail size of peas or smaller. Now, you look at the Student Center. If you've ever seen the Student Center, it's a peculiar looking building, I have to say. Well, there's also this been on social media, because you're not going to see it in mainstream news, about information about what's on the pyramids, the plaza of the pyramids, that there's structures below. And it kind of makes you wonder if it does it look anything like that. And it's hard to see. Let me see here if I can blow it up. See what I mean? You got the pyramid, and then you got like one floor above the main building there. And see like how the four stripes that go down. It kind of makes me wonder if we're getting truth in plain sight there. Let's see if I can find some of the images of the pyramid, what people are talking about. Because, on New Year's Eve, the Capitol building and the Washington Monument was also struck by lightning. And that was New Year's Eve. Today would be day 88. That gets a whole deal. I've been seeing the number 88 all over the place. It's like something's going on. But then you had the earthquake too. Miramar. 7.7. 77 years ago. And there's something about that regarding Liberation Day. I'll get into that. Let me see if I can find... See if it's in my feed here. In my feed somewhere. Right there. Might be. Was it last week? Oh, that's a funny video. that's a funny video. Let's see if I can't find it. Oh yeah, he also had earlier this week the bishop, the archbishop, giving Trump the Holy Cross. Of course, NIU plays Holy Crosses here, so I had a little fun with that earlier this week. There's stuff going on, I'm telling you. I don't know if I could find this. Yeah, I don't think it's in my feed. I'm gonna have to find. Let's see if I can get any. I'll search it real quick. Columns below pyramids. Let's see if anything shoots up. Okay. Yeah. Is this a good one? Okay, here we go. Look at this. Right? This is kind of what we've been seeing. Sort of. Let's see if I can find. You know? See that? Now let me go back. See if I can find a better picture. Like something, like see that? That's not the best picture. Let's see. See it kind of? See a little bit? Now let me go back and take a look at the student center. I'm telling you. When you look at the student center, it's like it's truth in plain sight. Gotta find it again. Keep in mind, this is this morning. All this information about columns below the pyramids. That's truth in plain sight, if that's the case. Those four looks like columns below the pyramids. You know, it's like the architects who designed the Home Student Center, they're aware of this. They already knew about what's underneath the pyramids. That's what I see, anyways. That's what when I look at this, I'm like, oh, they know. When I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness. And then, of course, this happens. Lightning strikes. And then it's 88 days after the Capitol and the Washington Monument gets struck. New Year's Eve. It's like, that's a little too on the nose, if you ask me. So, Liberation Day. I'm going to give a clue to what's really going on with Liberation Day. Liberation Day. I put it on X. I think I figured something out. You'll have to understand how I think these people who do things, plan things out, how they operate, to understand. Like they plan things out generations at a time. The way the government works, they don't work like the average individual. They play the long game. But see, they believe their religion. This is their religion too, by the way. This is part of what they try to get us to bow to their way of doing things. Working 9 to 5, for example. 40-hour a week, right? Well, those of us prefer to work more than 40 hours. And we don't ask for overtime and all that other nonsense. No. So Trump has something up his sleeve. What it is exactly, I don't know. But I'm telling you, there's no coincidences. There are no coincidences. If you know the story, I'm giving another clue here. If you understand the story and the family background, I definitely think it's definitely related to. My grandfather was a watchmaker, after all. So his job was more important than people understand. You know, within their system, though, that's just it. Like you say, he's a watchmaker. What time is it? I gotta get to work. What time is it? Right? Anyways, so now I want to transition. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Any other news item? I talked about what's going on with LaShawn Johnson. What's really going on there, I don't know. But the timing of it, the news dropping when it did, I think there's something we're not privy to. I talked about the NIU Home Student Center, Miramar earthquake, 7.7. 2 hours before, not a coincidence. Day 88, 3:30 a.m. Not a coincidence. Something's going on with that. Because you got LaShawn Johnson in the news, Matt Weiss, who replaced Thomas Hammock. And the reason I talked about 42 Faces, like that's going to be a topic I talk about whenever, at some point I'll write a book. I don't want to put people down. It's more about trying to, get people to understand. Pride. What is the essence of pride? It's basically believing you're higher than someone. And I'm telling you, there are two people I'm thinking about. If people thought that about me, if people think that about me, man, you don't know me. I stopped talking to people not because I think I'm above them. It's because I think people just don't understand that I've been totally mistreated. Not because I deserve anything. No. I don't deserve anything. I know I don't deserve anything. But it's like I don't think I'm anything because of what I've accomplished. But it's like there are people who wanted fame, never got there. Never got there. I quite frankly didn't want it, and I was closer to anybody besides the people I played with. I'm saying the people that really wanted, the people who talked about it the most. never got close. Never got as close as I got. And I'm not saying I'm better. I'm not saying I got there because I was better. But there was a mindset. There was this belief that, the way to get there. And I'm like, that's not the way to get there. Because there are people who sell their souls to get there. And I think that's the issue. I think people don't believe that people actually give up their souls for fame. I think that's what it is. I think there's this naivete that thinks you can just you just have to work hard. It's like, yeah, no, that's not how you achieve fame. The way people achieve fame. Camera froze, so I had to reset it. The way a lot of people achieve fame, some people achieve fame via legitimate ways. But, I almost guarantee the way people do achieve fame, I could tell you this. They do give up at least a portion of their soul. And so you want to be famous, like Beatles famous. It's like I have to have these conversations this way because we're like 90 degrees out of phase. Because, well, I mean, part of the issue is I have to question, word of faith, the real definition of word of faith, Romans 10:9, if you're a doubting Thomas, well, I mean, there's evidence. You can look it up. The issue is my own flesh and blood. Our battle's not against flesh and blood, and yet my own flesh and blood was at war with me, I think. Maybe he was playing 3D, 4D, 5D chess, and when I was not even playing. I don't know. I had my struggles. I had my issues. It's like, oh, I don't have that issue. Oh, you might as well have had that issue if you did what you did. And then you can't let it go. You say, I can't let it go. I'm the one that is looking for closure, and I'm not allowed to have it. I'm looking for closure on something. I'm like, what are you holding on to? I'm just looking for are we not, are you upset about something I did when I was in high school? You still upset about something? That's where we are right now. That's where my mind is. I can't, it's like, well, why not? No. No, this is how it has to be. Because if it's something like that, then it's like you're petty. tool bag in my mind. You have to prove to me otherwise. I'm sorry if your wife can't be honest with you about something. I know something happened. Your wife can't be honest about it. That I understand being pissed off about. But maybe that happened because you're holding on to something from when we were in high school. Maybe that's why that happened. Because you're a petty tool bag. I don't know if that's what it is. You know, but it's like, I bring something up that your wife said to me, and the reason I didn't want to say anything at the time was because, well, water's under the bridge. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not going to say anything because there may be something else going on that I don't have a clue about. Well, maybe your wife likes to play checkers when, you know, when you're playing chess. I don't like to play either. I don't like to play games. Like, you know, when I wrote the song, what good does it do to gain the world but lose your soul? John's like, I want to be famous. Where the heck is your head? Is what I'm trying to figure out. If you think I'm being petty here, I'm like, no. Didn't you understand? That's why I wrote the song. But you're like, oh, I want to be famous too. I'm like, look, I was in a band in high school. We opened for Enough's Enough. Two of the guys wanted to like hang out with them. They shrugged them off. So I'm like, if that's what fame turns you into, I want no part of it. Why don't we have a conversation for real? See, at the time, me too. Me, I want that too. You know how stupid I thought you were being at the time? Like I said, we played the last show at the Thirsty Whale. Yeah, Sacred Warrior played there too. We played the last show, opening for Enough's Enough. This is in 96. We're on the road in 97. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. What I'm saying is, at the time, fame was for the birds. Not the Yardbirds or the, you know, to everything, turn. No, not them. I want no part of it. I wanted no part of that. And yet John's like, he's not just talking about like being as big as Petra or even Striper. He's talking like Beatles. I'm like, are you guys stupid? That's why I didn't want I Will Rise to be the first song on the album, because that sets the tone for the rest of the album. I'm like, you're setting us up for failure. Because if not everyone's on board with what you guys want, it's not happening. That's why I'm still kind of PO'd about what happened. Because there's never been any resolution. But it's like God's sending all kinds of signals. I don't know. It seems like God is sending all kinds of signals. And it may not be God, it may be Lucifer. But God's allowing it. He's allowing it. Why? We did live 2 doors down. We lived 2 doors down. And so earlier this week, there was what? The Ark of the Covenant, right? The Ark of the Covenant, right? There was remote view, supposedly via remote viewing. Come on, we know that that's a bunch of crap. What do you think? Remote viewing is a bunch of crap, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Turns out it's a rated PG movie, but I saw that movie, but there was rated R scenes in it. I remember what happened Mother's Day 2012. It's hard for me not to remember what happened that day because basically it was like, and we had this conversation. I think this is how this video is going to go. These videos are going to go because we don't talk. And so I had to do it like this. I think God's having me do it like this. Because, hey. Hello? I think this is how these videos has to be. I think about it. Because what happened on Mother's Day 2012 was me reliving something with our mother. And so I had to carry that for years because our mother was someone, and we had this conversation. Our mother was someone who couldn't handle like anything that was just off color. And yet, I remember watching the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It seemed to be okay there. But come on. Nazis digging up the Ark of the Covenant and then their faces getting melted off. I'm at 5 years old at this point. Oh, that was okay for me to see? We had this conversation. Also seeing, Clash of the Titans with Medusa's head being cut off and the monster being turned to stone. That was fine. So then, Big Bang Theory. It brought up memories of what? Three's Company. But it wasn't just that. Our mom had a problem with He-Man, Masters of the Universe. And it's like, there's stuff going on in our reality. You know what I'm saying? Do you hear me? We got to talk about something here. Ark of the Covenant. In the CIA document, it says they viewed the object with silver and gold and wood. Silver, gold, and wood, and a seraphim. Now let me read Exodus. Before I go, let me backtrack. This week's, because it was a double portion, I'm going to include last week's and this week's. Last week's scripture is Exodus 35 to Exodus 40, basically. It's a double portion, 22 and 23, week 22, 23. Because of that, I'm including this because it deals with the Ark of the Covenant. And then you have Ezekiel 36 to Ezekiel 36:16 to Ezekiel 37. And I think that's 1 Kings 7:13 to 50, but I don't know. And then you had the New Testament, 2 Corinthians 8:1 to 9:15, Hebrews 9:1 to 14, Revelation 11:1 to 13, which deals with the two witnesses. Now, let me just share this week's. I'm going to share the second parsha in 60 seconds. Let me just share this.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Exodus 38:21 through 40:38. It is called Pikudei, which means amounts of. Aaron's son Ithamar oversaw the budget of the tabernacle. Portions of gold, silver, and copper were used by skilled workers. A silver half-shekel tax was taken by each man 20 years and older. The skilled workers made the priest's vestments, ephod, and breastpiece, just as God had commanded Moses. They made the robe, the tunic of fine linen, and the frontlet inscribed, Holy to the Lord, just as God also commanded. They brought the tabernacle and all its furnishings to Moses, and he blessed them. God told Moses to set up the tabernacle, and Moses did just as God had commanded him. Moses completed the work, and the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and God's presence filled the tabernacle. When the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, the Israelites would set out, and when the cloud did not lift, they would not set out. And God's cloud rested over the tabernacle by day, and fire would appear in it by night. This concludes the book of Exodus. Join us next week as we wander into the exciting and completely not boring book of Leviticus. And that is Pikudei in 60 seconds.
All right. Let me play the other one because that deals with the Ark of the Covenant.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Exodus 35:1 through 38:20. It is called Vayakel, which means, and he assembled. The Israelites are prepping to build the tabernacle. Moses reminds them of God's commandment to keep the Sabbath of complete rest. Gifts of materials from those whose hearts so moved them were collected. Gold, silver, copper, colored yarn, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, acacia wood, olive oil, spices, lapis lazuli, and other precious stones were gathered. Skilled workers were invited to make the tabernacle, its furnishings, and the priest's gear. Gifts were brought. Betzalel and Aholiab were God-gifted craftsmen and were charged to construct the tabernacle. The Israelites gave generously to the collection. The skilled workers began their projects. They made the tabernacle's boards, silver sockets, bars of acacia wood, rings of gold, veiled pillars of acacia wood, screen for the door, and sockets of brass. Betzalel made the ark, cover, and table, the menorah and incense altar, and the altar of sacrifice, laver, and enclosure for the tabernacle. And that is Vayakel in 60 seconds.
Okay. So that didn't really get into the details regarding the Ark of the Covenant. But let me just go to the scripture. Exodus 37. Bezalel went on to construct the Ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide and 1.5 cubits high. He overlaid it with pure gold, both inside and out, and made a gold molding around it. And he cast 4 gold rings for its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side and 2 on the other. Then he made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. He inserted the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark in order to carry it. This is the mercy seat. He constructed a mercy seat of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. He made 2 cherubim of hammered gold at ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherub on one end and 1 on the other, all made from 1 piece of gold. And the cherubim had wings that spread upward, overshadowing the mercy seat. The cherubim faced each other, looking toward the mercy seat. Now, in the news, the object that's called the Ark of the Covenant from the CIA document, declassified document, by the way, it was declassified in the year 2000. It means it's been out there for 25 years, and for some reason it popped in the news this week. For some reason, it popped in the news this week, along with news about the pyramid, columns underneath the pyramid. Nothing happens without the authority given by the Most High. Just keep that in mind. Because I don't know, maybe you think I don't understand this. I understand this. I think there are a lot of Christians that don't understand this, quite frankly. But the point I'm trying to make is, well, the CIA document, what's described is the Ark of the Covenant with gold, silver, and wood. Well, hold on a second there, Tommy. There's no silver in the Ark of the Covenant, according to the scriptures, according to Exodus. Two spots. Exodus 25 and Exodus 37 describes the Ark of the Covenant. Neither is made with silver. So that ain't the real Ark of the Covenant. And it mentions Seraphim, not Cherubim. Not the real Ark of the Covenant, according to what's in the scriptures. So I think it's something that was fabricated. It may have been one that was made for a different time, but not the one that was made by Moses or Bezalel, whatever his name is. The interesting thing, though, that no one else pointed out that I found very interesting right off the top was the date that this was conducted. This remote viewing was conducted. It was conducted on December 5th, 1988. When was the state funeral for George Herbert Walker Bush? December 5th, 2018. No one. That just washed over everybody. I don't know how people cannot see it at this point, but it's very peculiar how things are happening. George Herbert Walker Bush may have been the operations manager for the JFK assassination. He's elected president in November 1988. This remote viewing deal occurs December 5th, 1988. He's a former CIA director. You think he's not aware of this? 30 years. What's significant about that? Well, how old was Jesus when he began his ministry? He was 30. Let's see. If he died August 30th, or not August 30th, November 30th, that's the date he died, supposedly. What's 3.5 years after that? Well, I can tell you what 3 years to the day is. Something happened there. 3.5 years would be May 30th, 2022. I see something. But beyond that, they're the Luciferians. They're at work. I'm telling you, they're at work. But see, people totally missed the D5 reference there. But what else was going on? What was supposed to happen on December 5th, 2018? What was supposed to happen? John Huber, right? His Clinton Foundation findings. It's like there's a white hat, black hat thing going on, I think. Both are workers of iniquity. Because, well, first of all, the Ark of the Covenant that was remotely viewed is not what's described in Scripture. It's a counterfeit. And that's all the enemy can do, is counterfeit what is the truth. That's all the enemy can do. I think I know why God is calling me the condescending evangelist. Well, because I know I'm no better. But there are people I've associated with that think they're better. I'm like, you guys missing the point. Totally missing the point. First shall be last, last shall be first. The first, I mean, you basically, if you're supposed to be humble, God opposes the proud, gives grace to the humble. You want what is of the world? Take it. I don't want it. I still ended up opening for Kid Rock. I still ended up on WGN TV. I didn't ask for that. I can tell you, that was people I associated with, people I played in bands with. You know, it's like I don't think I'm better than them because people are missing the point. Look, people do what they do. It's like that people do. I didn't seek that. When I played, even when I was with Lunge, I wasn't. I knew I wanted to play. Ultimately, I wanted to play in a band that did evangelism. I knew that's what I wanted. And I did that for a little bit. But see, still. Here's the thing. Like I said, recent years, interactions with people, I still think that they don't get it. People might think, oh, you're seeking fame, doing this channel. It's like, no. No, because I would do it totally different. I wouldn't be rambling and bumbling and rambling and bambling the way I am if I was really seeking fame. I'm trying to like make sure I'm doing things the way I'm doing it so I don't become famous. But it's like I'm trying to reach that one person, you know. I may have a little bit of autism. I don't know this. Never was diagnosed. Never really went to go find out if I'm autistic, but it's like I think I may have some of that. Well, because of stuff like this. Because of stuff like that. Stuff like that sticks out, and I'm like, 3:30 a.m. Am I the only one that sees something there? And then, you know, Liberation Day, working 9 to 5. Yeah, giving a clue there. Grandfather was a watchmaker. If you can't get it by now, I can't help you anymore. You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not elevating. Oh, I figured something. No, see, it's the system. They think they're better than us. This is the point I'm trying to make. The system thinks they're better than us. They think we can't figure out their clown show. I'm telling you, I can figure it out, their clown show, from 1,000 miles away. That's the point I'm trying to make ultimately with what I do. They think we can't figure it out. Ah, you're stupid. So you just made your. Oh, they're stupid because they think we can't figure it out. They think they're above us. There is someone above me physically. I'm saying, like, intellectually, they think they're superior to us. Oh, you believe in the Bible. You believe in the Bible. You're a you believe in the Bible. And then they'll quote like little pieces of scripture, and they think that they got us all done. It's like, not understanding, like, if you understand, like, the ancient Paleo Hebrew in particular, like how it actually embodies, like, one letter of the ancient Hebrew embodies, like, multiple truths within one letter. You know, like you know how I know I'm not better than the Hebrews? Certainly not the ancient Hebrews. You know why I know I'm not better than them? They memorized by age 10 the entire Torah. I have a hard time memorizing a passage of scripture. I've always had a hard time with that. That's how I know I'm not better. But does that mean I can't serve God? It means I can't serve God because I can't memorize. I'm not good at memorizing scripture. I heard this prophet say this. And this guy, you want to talk about a condescending, you know what? All-seeing apostle. That's my nickname for him. Well, if you can't quote the love chapter. And I'm like, the love chapter? Have you read it, prophet? Oh, but I was just talking about, it's like the next time. I can tell he's listening to what I do. Because the next time he says, I was talking about verses 4, 4 through 8. I'm like, yeah, that's not what you said. You said the love chapter, buddy. I'm sorry. That's the thing about the internet. It's forever. And the more you're given, the more you're required to do the right thing. That's why I was having fun with that prophet that whole time. Because he was a charlatan. I'm not saying I'm better than him. He believes he's above everybody. That's what I'm talking about. Well, that dynamic exists in my family. It exists with people I associated with. They don't understand it. I was just a kid. He was just a kid. No. You don't understand. He was a condescending, arrogant jagoff. The way he was acting. I don't care if he's only 18. He was following that church that was part of that Kansas City movement, which is where that group that was in Alabama was also part of. That's why he was the way he was. Because they don't subscribe to the idea of the first shall be last, the last shall be first. They don't subscribe to that. And so that's why he's still in Chicago trying to make it in the music business today, in his 40s. Because he still thinks he can do it. Yeah, let him try. I don't care. I just don't like information being withheld from me. You know, but that's the way it is. I'm not bitter at anybody. I'm not. But people have no idea what it's like to, be kind of compartmentalized the way I was with the family, the way I was raised with a mother who was pretty zealous. Okay, you got to understand that. I think my brother understood this when I was explaining this to him, but then it's like all of a sudden he flipped. I'm like, you're a traitor to me. It's like, why not be honest from the start? If you had a problem, with whatever, what I was trying to, if there was something, if what I said was wrong, why not address it right there? That's what that purpose of that meeting was. But that's not what happened. That was a big strike. I had a problem with what happened on Mother's Day. The head of the household is supposed to take control there. That's not what happened. No, it was Mother's Day. That's what a spineless liberal does. Allows There's a reason the Apostle Paul says, I do not permit the wife, the woman, to speak in the meetings. There's a reason for that. A lot of people today, we live in a postmodern, liberal, bullcrap world today. That's the issue. And so that's why that happened. Doesn't mean it's right. And then when we have the meeting with the pastor, and then we have the meeting with the I don't even know what she's called at Northwestern. I'm like, you're a spineless tool bag. Look, people can say what they want about me. They don't. People like to play games. That's all they like to do. Well, I gotta wrap it up because I didn't realize I talked for a while. Talked over an hour and 40 minutes. I just want to just point out, like, look, I know I'm not perfect. Far from it. A lot's happened to me. Not blaming anybody. But what I don't like is this dog and pony show that goes on that's gone on. All right, that's happened already. And then when I try to address the matter head on, you act like a little girl. When you're married with 5 kids, 2 adopted. And I know you probably didn't like something I wrote. You took the side of the Ethiopian government, for crying out loud. I'm not going to let that go. And you took the side of child services. There's all kinds of problems there. I'm not going to let any of that go. At some point, if you don't say something, if we don't have a real conversation at some point, I don't know what's going to happen. But it's almost like you want something to happen. And I think that's what really aggravates me. It's like you're hoping something happens. Like I said, if you're still upset about something from high school, when I was in high school, I got something to be upset about you about. I'm not upset about that anymore. But, and I don't know if I really was upset. It was more people trying to play games, in all honesty. At the same time, I was more upset with the church not having a high school youth group. But I think if you're upset about something that happened when I was in high school and you were away at school, you're the one that's being petty. I know you brought it up one time when I was in the room, but you never addressed it to me head on, little girl. It's like I have a little sister. That's what a girl does, you douchebag. So that's why I can't talk to my own brother head on. Because of stuff he's done already. And when I bring stuff up, he acts like a little girl. They say, well, why do you talk? Because I've already tried. I don't know what else to do. I'm not going to a professional. We've done that. That's not solving the problem. That ain't solving the problem. I don't know what else to do other than pray. But see, God's called me the condescending evangelist for a reason. So he's having me do this too. Well, because like I said, one of the guys in the band wanted to be famous. Would never shut up about it. Oh, me too. I want to be famous too. What good does it do to gain the world but lose your soul? Are you stupid? I don't know if they get it, but you know. That's all. I don't know what else to do.
Goodbye, Toledo.